Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the HaskinCast Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I have a wonderful guest coming back to the show today. She was here, I think it was last year, to talk about the book that she had coming out. In the middle of that, she's done a film, she's done a bunch of stuff, relocated. I've never seen someone as busy as her and still putting out such quality things, and she is back with a book that is about to come. Actually, it's coming out today, the day that this episode airs. We will have the links to where you can purchase it, and you're going to want to purchase it because this is going to be a very, very good book. She's here to tell us all about it. And before we get to that, I will just give you guys a quick update on what I have going on. I am now beyond the 50% mark editing my trilogy, and hopefully that will go to the beta readers by the end of April. And then, we'll do the final review of it and the audiobook and all that good stuff. So I'm kind of targeting June or July at this point to release the first book. And then, we'll see how the second one goes. But I want everything kind of done, at least as far as the writing and the reviewing and all that, before I start releasing them. Because, if I find something in the third book that makes the story just kind of change, then I might have to go back to the first book. If I've already put the first book out there, well, then it's kind of too late to fix it. So that's the strategy there. And then once that goes off to the beta readers, I'll be jumping on the next album. And the next album will be the time of year in the summertime is when I release an album of songs that I've previously written, but I've cleaned them up, put them in a new package and re-release them. A lot of these songs really, I put them out there, but they never got heard. So it's going to be nice to get those out in a new format. Of course, Kelly will be doing the designing of the graphics, and Rebecca will be doing all the lettering. Such a wonderful team. I'm so blessed to work with these guys. Ladies, I should say. So blessed to be working with these ladies. So had a great time talking to Diane, though, and let's just get right to that interview because I want you guys to learn about this book, and I want you guys to go grab it while you're listening to the show. They've already hit a bestseller status, and the book isn't even out yet. We actually recorded this a couple weeks in advance of the release of the show, and it was already a bestseller well before the actual release of the book. That's really weird to me, but it shows that people are interested in the content and that there's something that they're doing right in their marketing. So let's hear all about this wonderful book from Diane Dresbach. Here is my interview with Diane. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited to welcome back a guest who has been on the show before. She has a brilliant new project that I think everyone should check out, and I think you're all going to be excited by it. My dear friend and fellow author and awesome person, Diane Dresbach. Diane, how are you?
Yay! Great. It's so good to be back on your show, Scott.
Thank you.
I thank you for inviting me. Because of this new project that's going on. So
yes,
it's good to be here.
This is an awesome project. Now, when you were on the show before, though, you were in Texas. Now you have relocated back to Arizona, where we have a ton of mutual friends and fellow, entertainment professionals. Are you all settled back into life in Arizona now?
Absolutely. We're loving it. We've been back here since June, and we have a new granddaughter that we're enjoying.
Yay!
And I know it's wonderful. And 3 of our 4 adult children live here. So it's really, really been fun. We've been a little restricted because of COVID and, not being able to get together in big groups and stuff. With like film people, but it's been wonderful to be back here. I missed it so much being gone for 6.5 years.
Oh, sure. Has it really? Wow. It was that long.
Yep.
I had a planned move right before COVID started. I had set myself up to relocate within Vegas, and the actual move didn't happen until about 3 or 4 weeks after the COVID lockdown started. And for me, it was kind of a terrifying experience because I started thinking about all these details. Like, I'm going to rent a truck and be driving in it that's not mine. I don't know who cleaned it. I don't know the people that are coming to move my stuff. They're going to touch every box that I own. They're going to be moving it into an apartment that I don't know who cleaned. I mean, all these things started running through my head. What was the process like for you guys? We were a little more into it, but it was still kind of new.
Yes, it was. It was. We moved, actually left Texas on June 1st. And, a week or two before and a week or two after, we ended up making 3 trips back and forth for stuff because we got so entrenched there and had some things we needed to bring. And you're in the big truck going across going from Texas to Arizona. You have to spend a night in a hotel. You have to eat out. So yeah, we were wearing our masks, but it was still kind of questionable back then. There were still people walking around without masks, and Texas is a little more laxed on that kind of stuff. So had lots of hand sanitizer.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Was it difficult to find places to eat at that point?
No, there were places to eat. But there weren't as many people in there and stuff like that. But it was still pretty new. It was really new in March and April. But we got here. We made all our trips.
Yes, you did. Well, you're the kind of person that if there's a challenge, you're going to find a way through it. You don't seem to me to be the kind of person that says, that looks difficult, so let's completely rearrange our lives to accommodate that. You just push through.
Yep, we did. We were like, we get the chance to go back. It's like, we're coming back.
Well, I'm glad you're back home with your family and your fellow, I'm sure that you had a lot of great connections in Texas, but there's something to be said for those people that you meet, especially in the beginning.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, you've done enough 48-hour film challenges and things where you're working with people under pretty intense circumstances. And there's a bond that you build with those people that even if you don't see them for a long time, as soon as you see them, you're just like instant close again. Yep.
That is true. And we just participated in the 48-hour challenge that A3F put on just a couple of weeks ago, actually. And it was a one shot. So the film could be up to 2 minutes, and it was just one shot. And I put together a team there were 6 women, and we did this film, and we actually won, which was really fun.
Congratulations. I was so excited when I saw that, and I saw that you teamed up with Sally Ann Francis.
Yep. And it was a great team. A couple of people I hadn't worked with before, which was, I love that with these challenges as you get the opportunity to work with somebody. And it was really fun. And it was nice to take my mind off of book stuff, which I've been focusing on for the last 5 months, and put it back on film for just a little bit.
Well, you seem to be one of those people like me that has several things going at the same time. Do you feel like when you can get to those points where you're like, I need to stop and just do anything other than what I'm doing right now, and then you just end up bouncing to another project instead of doing anything else?
Yes. I can focus for a pretty long time on, what needs to be done. But then it's really nice to, like I said, focus on something different for just a couple days. This morning I went for a walk, and I'm thinking because I really haven't done too much creative work lately for writing because I've been just focused on this pre-launch of this other book. So I went for a walk, and I'm like, I'm going to think about this prequel to this story that, this novel that I have coming. And sure enough, if I put my mind to it, and get out and get some walking in, I got an idea for a story. So I'm like, okay, that's really cool. So
of course you did.
Yeah, it's just, but you have to set your mind to something. At least for me, if I say, I've got to think of this, I got to solve this problem. I got to, I got to come up with some solutions to this and that. Usually it works, not always, but a lot of times it does. So that's kind of cool.
Well, and sometimes you get to a point where you have to put it down because you need to make decisions on how you want to move a project forward, and you can't work on it. So, getting away to do something else, like clearing your mind by taking a walk, or for me, just jumping on another project. And then in the middle of that, I'll be like, oh, I know what I need to do. And I'll write it down and get to a stopping point and then go back to the other one.
It is interesting how that happens. There's something just pops into your head when you're not really thinking about it. It's like, oh, there's a solution.
But don't you think that's kind of the key to it sometimes, is there's times where you need to buckle down and just figure it out. And then there's other times where you need to let it go. And once you let it go, then your mind's like, okay, now that I'm not pushing myself, I can actually think in the background with some clarity, and then it comes to you.
I totally agree with that. I have experienced that many, many times. So yes.
And are you the kind, like if you have deadlines, do you tend to work better under pressure, or when you just can kind of do things on your own scale?
I usually, when I have deadlines, if I can, I set them earlier than when they're actually due. I learned, I don't know why I learned this, but when I was back in college, I used to be late on everything. I was always pushing the 11th hour trying to get something done. And somewhere in that time, I changed my mindset and I said, I don't want to be late anymore. I always want to be early in getting something done. And sure enough, I somehow made that switch. And so if I can at all, if it's at all possible, I get things done early, even if they're not due for, another couple days or weeks or something. So I push myself to get done early, to take the stress off of having to do it the last minute. Although I will say that sometimes there are things I'm doing at the last minute.
Well, I tend to do that same thing. And I'll just give you the example of I kind of push and push and push. And I don't go to bed until I really just can't see anything anymore, where my eyes are just having a hard time opening. And I started doing this thing where I would wake up and I would look at the alarm clock and I would calculate how much time I really had before I had to get up. And then I would set the alarm and go back to sleep. So that didn't work because I would wake up and I would do math. And then I would just be able to recalculate and give myself another minute and another minute all the time. So I started changing the time on my clock to be completely wrong, so that I would wake up and think it was later than it really was, and that would motivate me to get up. And that worked for a week. And then I started waking up and doing the math. I know that clock is 12 minutes early.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it only works for a few days doing that.
I never, ever conquered that.
Yeah, I used to do the same thing. I set my clock 10 minutes, sooner than what it was. And after a while, I'm like, oh, well, I know I got 10 more minutes. So it never really motivated.
Exactly.
But one of the things that helps me is that I can't go to bed unless I have a plan for the next day. So I always, have that plan to start. Okay, I got to do these 5 things tomorrow. It's really hard for me to go to bed if I have something that, I've got, if I have something on my mind, I'm thinking about something. If I don't get that out of my head, then I can't go to sleep because I'm, constructing emails or, whatever in my head. So then I'll just get up in the middle of the night and do a voice recording of whatever the idea is, or I'll make notes or something, and then I can go to sleep. But unless I can't go to bed with having stuff on my mind, or I just can't go to sleep. So by having my list of what's going to happen the next day, that helps too.
Oh, for sure. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because that's actually a piece of advice I give to people quite often that tell me that they have a hard time sleeping. When I ask them, they usually say, well, I think about what I have to do tomorrow. And I say, why don't you just write it down? If you write it down, you don't have to hold it in your brain anymore. Yep. Your brain will go, okay, I know that's dealt with. I can let it go. Mm-hmm. And so I tend to keep a notebook and a pencil within very close reach of me in case I think of something. I'll wake up in the middle of the night. It really, for me and a lot of other people, seems to make a difference to just let that out of your head. But I also love what you say about just having that organization of, I need to have things ready to go for tomorrow so that I can just jump up and be productive when it's time.
Right. Yep.
Now, do you feel that the deadlines that you set for yourself are reasonable, or do you kind of push yourself into working maybe a little quicker than you should?
Well, because I like to get things done early, that always gives me a little bit of play in it. If I need to do something, I can push it without without freaking out, so there was like one thing I needed to get finished with this book stuff. And I had some time, but I still wanted to get started on it, but I kept pushing it, but that's okay because I started early. I'm sorry, I forgot what the question was.
I said, do you find that you set too strict of deadlines for yourself sometimes?
Oh.
But that was I loved what you said, so it worked out.
Yeah. Sometimes I do. I always tease with my husband. I was like, the boss is all over me. I've got a really, really tough boss. I mean, she's like a slave driver, and which is me. It's like, no, I have to do this. And he's like, well, do you want to go, do happy hour or whatever? It's like, no, I have to finish this first before we can go. So I'm pretty good at staying on track with things, and I'll put the deadline out there, and like I said, most of the time I'll stick with it. I'm pretty disciplined with that, I think. After so many years, if I didn't do that, then nothing would get done, because there's always something else to do.
Sure. And everything is a choice. I mean, we can choose to work on a project. We can choose to eat an extra meal, watch a television show, read a book. I mean, there's a million things we could do with any one moment in time. And if you're really passionate about what you're doing, most of those moments are going to be dedicated to what you're passionate about. And I would say with the amount of things that you've done, your monthly newsletter is exhausting to me. And I think I work hard. You make me feel like I do nothing. It's amazing how much you do.
Oh, you do a lot, Scott. You do a lot of stuff. I don't know. I have lots of ideas and you never know. You never know when you're going to leave this planet, or so I'm like trying to get a lot of stuff in. I there's have a lot of ideas and stories and stuff, and a lot of things that I want to do. And so if I don't push it, who else is going to push it?
That's it. I feel like we're so limited in the time that we have here, and the things that I do, I love doing. Otherwise I wouldn't spend time working on them. Do you get people saying to you, what they say to me is like, you need to take a vacation, you need to get away from this? And I'm like, I'm perfectly happy. I'm not having any creative blocks. I'm not, I'm tired, but other than that, I mean, I'm not feeling, any negative energy around me. Do you get people coming to you and saying things like that?
It's funny because I think balance is really, really important in your life. And even though I work a lot of hours, I still make sure that I have the balance. So at a certain time, like on the weekends, I don't work as much on the weekends unless I have to. At least that's kind of the routine right now. I know that sometimes, we're doing more film and stuff like that. You got to work on weekends. But for now, it's I try not to work as much on the weekends unless my husband sits down and, wants to watch a movie or something, and I pull out my laptop and do some work. But I don't have stuff really scheduled for the weekends because I think it's really important to do fun things and rejuvenate and, not work like consistently. So I'll work a lot during the week so I can have a couple days just a downtime. And we love the lake, so we love going up to the lake, and that's the best place to just go up there. You could just sit on the boat, look at the water, and you can, you just completely relax. At least we do for sure. So I feel rejuvenated on that kind of stuff.
Well, that's very important, and that makes sense because if you're taking time away on a regular basis, then you don't really feel like so overwhelmed that you need to stop for 10 days and go take a cruise.
Oh, that sounds fun, though.
Well, except well, there's certainly nothing wrong with doing that. But there's a difference between I've pushed myself to the point that I feel like I'm going to crack versus, you know what? I've got these projects are done. This one's at a good spot. I can take some time off and go do that. Yeah.
Well, and I think also having this mindset of, I'm going to work really hard here for, like I told him, I said, look, I'm going to be working a lot more hours for the next couple months because of this project, this book project that I'm working on. And so, I mean, he understands that, but I know it's not going to go on forever. So, and so I was up early, up late, and it worked. I got a lot of things done ahead of time. So I wouldn't have to be doing as much and feel like I was pressured on a deadline. So
good. And I think you and I have done enough things to where we can plan intelligently to not put ourselves in those positions a lot of times. And most of the deadlines we set are self-imposed anyway.
Yep.
Well, I think this new project that you have coming out, well, I should say, because on the day that this airs, it actually comes out today on the 14th. But this book, From Us to You, it just seems like such a magical project and such a brilliant idea. Can you tell us what it is and how you came to the idea of doing it and actually saying, okay, this is something I want to pursue?
Sure. So it's actually From Us for You.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
What a great podcast host I am. Get the title wrong.
Well, hasn't come out. You haven't read it yet. So
well, that's true.
Yeah. So last October, which about 5-6 months ago, an idea that I had previously came back up to me. And that was the idea of getting a group of people together to write a book together. And, I've had the idea for a few years, and I had it actually in Texas, but I wasn't sure about what the book would be, if it would be fiction or nonfiction. I just wasn't sure. I just knew that at some point, I wanted to do a book with a lot of people. So when I was sitting here in my famous purple chair, my creative chair, last October, I started thinking about that idea again. And I thought, I'm going to reach out to about 15 women. I wanted it to be all women writers. So I reached out to 15 people and I told them my idea. And my idea was for inspiring stories, it's like, so each person would share a story from their life for something that was difficult, or that they learned something, they overcame something. I left it really open for them. Mm-hmm. And then the idea is at the end, or throughout, they share the lessons learned as well. And, to be uplifting and inspiring to other people that could be in a similar situation, or just in it may not be exactly the same situation, but something that they were experiencing, something similar. So, and the net profits would be given to a nonprofit organization who uplifted women, and were advocates for women's the things that women need and stuff. So anyway, so I sent this email out to about 15 people. And man, I got a response. It was so positive. Mm-hmm. They emailed me back and they're like, oh, this is a great idea. I love this idea. Yes, I want to be involved. And so when I had a few people that thought it was a really good idea, but the timing was wrong. They had a whole bunch of stuff going on and they weren't able to participate, but they still, some of them said, hey, I know somebody that you could include as well. So that's how it started. And I put together all the details and gave them the guidelines and all this stuff. And so the book has 25 women from, I think, about 8 different states. And some of them I know, and some of them, I've met them just because of the project. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm really excited about it. And I'm glad that I made the decision to go ahead and do it.
This is interesting because you didn't know. So these weren't all people you reached out to. Was it that you reached out to one person, they said, hey, who else might be really good is so-and-so, and that's how you connected with these other folks?
Yes. Most of the people I do know. I'd say I probably know. Previously, I knew like 20 of them, but there were 5 of them say that, I had not met before this project. But those people said, hey, this person has a really good story. And so she would do an introduction, and then I would meet that person. And in fact, one of them then referred somebody else. So the stories are really powerful, and they're very, very different, which I love because we're all different and we all have different experiences. So they're not focused around one theme, like the theme of health, even though there are stories in there where people have had, really, really difficult health situations. And some of them are journeys, this is how my life started and this is where I ended up. And other ones are just situations that happened to them that they were able to overcome. So when in working with my editor, Teresa Young, I said to her, okay, these are all going to be, you're going to get 25 different styles. 25, they're going to be written differently. Some of these women are already writers and authors, and some of them have never written like this before. And I said, so, keep that in mind. I want to keep that. I want to preserve that uniqueness to these stories. And she did a great job with it. And yeah, so they're all different. So I wanted those voices to come through. I wanted those unique voices to come through and not sound all generic,
Right. And the other thing too is that even if they were all telling similar stories, everybody's got a different method of, assessing what's going on, how to handle what's going on, what they actually did versus what they thought they should do. Every story would be completely unique anyway, but I love that it's more of a variety than even that.
Yeah. It's very powerful. I mean, and we've been doing a lot of promotion. The book had a 30-day pre-order. And so we did this really active 6-week pre-launch campaign on social media. So that's probably where you're seeing a lot of stuff. Which has been wonderful because a lot of these women are able to share little bits and pieces of their story and who they are. And it's so rewarding for me to put them on, to get them some attention about who they are and the message that they're trying to get across. It's been awesome. I mean, honestly, it's been a wonderful experience.
Well, I think it's such a huge thing when anybody comes to you and says, I want you to open up and tell me about you. I mean, we live in this world where people are judged more by accomplishment or anything they've done wrong and not supported for just surviving something or just getting through a day sometimes, which can be tough. I love the idea of celebrating these people for getting through what they have and just even to the point of just opening up and being willing to talk about it, because a lot of people, we have to Photoshop everything, right? We have to smooth out all the wrinkles and pretend that our lives are perfect because that's what we expect people to see. I love that it's more raw than that.
Oh, it definitely is. It definitely is. Some of these stories are heartbreaking, really. I mean, they're very raw and they're very surreal. And we've been interviewing all of them as well. We recorded some Zoom interviews with each of the 25 authors, and they're some of them are pretty intense. And then there are other stories too. I don't want to make it sound like it's like, I mean, like I said, there are some stories that are focused in really kind of horrific situations. And then there are other stories that people just over time, they realize that they're not happy doing something and then they're seeking something else. And so there's such a variety in there.
Yeah, I think that the initial perception would probably be, here's 25 people who have seen some pretty horrible things and how they got over it. Whenever you see a bunch of people in a book that kind of just encompasses a bunch of people writing their own individual stories, I think that would be the first thing that would come to my mind. And what I happened to see was that you had presented it in a way that really explained it much better than that. But I just love the idea of getting these people together, really getting them to open up and be honest. I would imagine that was probably the hardest part for them, was not just being honest in the writing, but being honest with themselves.
Yeah. It's been, I've had a handful of people that, first of all, just writing in this way, they've never been invited to write like this. They haven't written in this way. and to share something very, very personal. And I've had more than one person that have said that this is kind of spurred on an idea of maybe they should continue writing. Maybe they should write a book. Maybe, they can continue to communicate in this manner, to share more stories and stuff like that. And they just want to be able to touch people in a way that is meaningful. And, I start getting all the goosebumps and everything, when I experience that and I hear that, and I just think that is so awesome, because some people said that they would not have done this if I wouldn't have asked them. And that, it's not really about me. It's just like, oh, I happen to be the one that, that invited them, and then they took on the challenge. So good for them. So,
well, it's something that I've always felt that people should just kind of do anyway, but we tend to get caught up more in the day-to-day of life. And a lot of times we don't want to face the things that have happened to us. We want to pretend that we've handled things better than we have, or that things weren't as bad as they were, and we don't dig into them as much. So I love the idea of just, whether it's journaling or really just kind of digging deep into something, because you're not going to discover as much if you don't ask those questions of yourself. So I think this is maybe something that should be rolled into an exercise for people to be encouraged to do on their own anyway.
Oh, yeah. That's good. I like that idea, because yes. And I agree with the fact that just going through the process of allowing yourself to think about it and put it where it needs to be, put it in the space it needs to be, where it doesn't have to continue to control you and to make you feel bad. And, that kind of stuff is because some of these situations happened, 20, 30 years ago to these women. And they're still, it's still important enough that they feel that they wanted to write about it and help somebody else in a similar situation. The writers, they're anywhere, they're from there in their 30s up into their 80s. And so we have a variety of different age ranges there. And it's been, and like I said, we did these 25 different interviews with people, and that we're releasing those right now during the campaign. By the time the show airs, they'll all be out there, and so people can watch and learn more about particular women, the chapter writers. So
do these interviews make more sense to have read the chapter on that person first and then watch the interview?
No.
Okay.
No. We, some of them will go a little bit more into what they wrote about. And some people just touch on the topic that they wrote about. We wanted to not just have them talk about their chapter, but also other things as well. And we're also doing these wine and reads, what we call wine and reads. You get a glass of wine or whatever beverage you'd like, and we have 6 to 7 authors per session, and they come on, and they're the featured authors for that evening, and they read a little bit from their chapter, or they would relay some other type of story that they felt was important, and they talk a little bit, and there's a Q&A. And we had 3 of those. Those are also going to be, available for people to watch. And then the other thing that we did, which was, I love these. When we introduced the 25 authors over a period of 10 days. So each day we introduce, there's 3 more authors. And that was really fun. And the authors didn't know, honestly, who else was in the book. So they were finding out who their fellow co-writers were, right along with everybody else. And then when they were introduced, we shared approximately 1 minute inspirational video that the author recorded on their phone or, whatever. And it was just, hey, I'm so-and-so, I live in this state, and my chapter is in the book. And then they give some words of inspiration too. And they're all completely different too.
I love that. I love the independence of it too, because I think there would be a risk if all the authors were giving a list of everyone else who was writing in the book. Some people might find others intimidating. They might edit themselves a little bit, depending on, even subconsciously, to say, well, if I know so-and-so is going to be writing, I better make sure what I'm doing is Not that they would have embellished the stories, but just maybe the way that they would have spoken would be a little bit less like them and more like how they felt they should be perceived. So I love the idea that you didn't tell anybody who else was in it.
No, I really wanted to keep it fun. The only people that knew, so Kimberly and Melissa Farley, they are two chapter writers in this, and they have been, they saw who the people were once we got into it, because they've been helping me with all of the promotion and marketing and the big social campaign. I mean, they've been really, really helpful. In sharing knowledge and experience, and the three of us are kind of the group that's kind of brought this out to the public. So that's been really fun to work with them.
Yeah, they're great people too, and they've actually both been guests on the show before, and they're people I've known for many, many years that I really adore. Yes,
absolutely. And then we also have a couple social media managers, Molly and Dominique, who have been responsible for putting up all of the, all of the posts and stuff on social media. I'm more of a Facebook person. I'm not into Instagram and Twitter as much, but that's just me. So there's a lot of people that are into that, and so Molly and Dominique have been great with posting everywhere. So
you got to have that. I mean, I spend so much time posting stuff on social media, and it's not my favorite thing in the world at all. I really get confused by Twitter still. If there's a feed that's gone on that I've been tagged in, I still can't figure out what the original post even was. It's just so easy to get lost in there. And Instagram's just a weird kind of thing because you can't post links except for the one in your bio. And I don't know, they're both very strange worlds. Whereas in Facebook, you can just put everything you need in the post. Here's a link if you're interested. Just click on it. It'll take you right there. It's like the most convenient user experience. But that's probably because I'm old school.
Well, me too. That's kind of the first social media I was even on. So I'm just not. And, you can just get sucked in to spending so much time on social media. And I don't want to do that by being everywhere and spending all my time. But, so and I'm very grateful for people that I'm very grateful for social media managers. They do so much. So,
well, it's one of those things where I'm grateful for social media, but I hate being a part of it at the same time. Like, I'm grateful that I can get information out about projects I'm working on. I can check up on my friends, but at the same point, there's just so much that can weigh you down if you allow yourself to get caught in that rabbit hole, and it can be very time consuming.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that this is all coming together, and you've got just a wonderful list of people. I see too that Laurie Love, who was also a guest on the show, is in here. And of course, I know Eva Louis, Diana Davis. You've really picked some amazing people. A lot of names I'm not familiar with, so I'll be curious to learn about them as well.
Yes. It's quite a group of wonderful and amazing women, all in their own unique way. Like I said, it's kind of the project. I mean, I thought it would be really cool to do this project, but I had no idea emotionally what it was going to do to me. I mean, just the stories themselves. Every time I'd get one in, I'm like, wow, that's pretty powerful. And that's going to help somebody. Not only that, but just all the interaction that we've had a chance to do with these authors, and how excited they are about the project, as well as how much, just how much attention that they're getting from their friends, family, and followers and stuff like that. It's kind of went a little bit bigger than than I was thinking, which is awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Awesome. Well, that's what you always hope for. But you have Robin Cotè in here too, and I've had Robin on the show a couple of times with her just unbelievable books that she's written. And I was a beta reader for the second one, and I knew what I was getting into. But even though you're getting into what you're getting into, when you're actually sitting down and doing it, it's just 10 times more powerful than you expected. She's such a fantastic visual storyteller. And her stories are so intense as they are. Even if she wasn't good at it, you would still be, just all caught up in it. But I was really glad when I saw she was on the list also.
Yes, yes. She was definitely among that 15 that I first started out with. So, and I saw that she's starting her third book or starting another book now. So I think it's her third one.
It
So
is. Yeah.
that's really
I
cool.
saw that this morning and I was just immediately excited. I'm like, oh, that's awesome because she's just not somebody that you can really say, all right, you're done with that. No.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was really exciting is that within a few days of, I think, like one day, we were already bestsellers on Amazon, even in the pre-order stage.
Wow.
And you know, in two different categories that they had, and that was. That was really surreal.
I
Kimber
love
calls
that.
out, "Hey, we're best selling." I'm like, "What?" And you know, but Amazon, I mean, they do it in such a weird way that you have to watch it all the time. They don't send you an email saying, "Hey, you're on this list." You have to watch it, and those ratings or rankings change every hour. So you're constantly having to watch to see, you know, where you're at. And you know, since then I'm not watching every hour, but
Right.
we're up and down, we're in it, we're out of it, you know, as the books come out. And I guess there's 7,500 new books that come out every single day on Amazon that are uploaded. Yeah, crazy.
It's nuts. And I mean, they do have some really good tracking devices to kind of give you an idea of where you're at, but I think they are a little limited in their reporting. It would be nice if you hit like top 10 and they could just auto respond an email to you to let you know that you've made the top 10s, because that's going to help you promote it more. And that's going to give you, you know, ammunition to go to the public and say, hey, I've got this book out. It just hit the top 10 on Amazon. It's not even out yet, and spark people's interest and get an even bigger audience. Like, I just think that we're so close on things we could do, but we're really not 100% there on what we actually do.
Yeah. That would be helpful.
We just recently found out with my other podcast, it's part of a deep dive podcast network for music shows. We found out that on iTunes, when you go to read the reviews that people leave, like the star ratings and the actual written reviews, you only get the reviews for North America. We had no idea that there are all these other regions. So you have to go into the website. You have to keep changing the country code to see if people have left ratings or reviews. And so we've been on the show, like, apologizing to people going, hey, you left me this review a year ago. We had no idea. We just found out about this. I'm like, why would you even do that? Why wouldn't they all be merged into one place? So it does get very frustrating when you're dealing with those mass sites that are so detrimental to getting the word out. But again, it could be a much better partnership.
Yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that for sure.
Now, I want to... go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to change topics, so...
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, I was going to say, I want to point out that while this is a book that is authored by 25 women, I think that just from what I've seen so far, and like you said, I've not read the book, it hasn't come out yet, but I would think that this would be an equally powerful and important book for men to read.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. And for probably a few different reasons. One being that it allows them to understand the type of situations that these particular women are in. And they probably know other women that have been in the, you know, similar situations or on similar journeys. You know, they may have a spouse that's, you know, unhappy in her job, and she's trying to figure out how can I do the thing that I want to do and not be caught up in just, you know, corporate America or, you know, whatever it is. And so I think it will give them some insight into the women in their lives about some of these topics. And then there are other things that the men can be. I mean, these, not all of them are exclusive to just women's situations.
Sure.
So it could be, you know, especially some of the health situations, you know, that can happen to anybody. And so, I definitely think that men could enjoy the book and could pick up a few things as well.
Yeah, it would seem like it. I mean, I would imagine that there's things that people that they know or maybe their partners have or are currently experiencing that they're just not able to communicate. And maybe this will open up some doors to hopefully be able to reach out and say, hey, I just read about this. It seems like you're kind of going through something like that. Do you want to talk? And just opening up that dialogue that people are so afraid to have.
Yes, yes. I would love to hear once the book, is out there. I would love to hear back from men to see what they thought of the book and if it was useful in that way, for sure.
Yeah, I have to imagine that it will be for people that are open enough to understand and accept what they're reading, because I think a lot of times we tend to worry about we might have done this to somebody or we might have put somebody in a bad position, and we kind of close ourselves off to it. We're so afraid to be honest with ourselves these days.
Yeah. Well, some people are really good at it, though. Some people, are like Robin is a really good example. Putting it out there, and she is probably one of the strongest women, and she's not afraid to do that. And I admire that. I probably need to be a little bit more like her. And so I think it encourages people to take the steps that they need, even if it's not putting it out publicly, but at least talking to somebody, talking to somebody else, whether it be, a friend or a significant other or whatever. In fact, this came up a few times on these interviews that we did is that the women were very much like, I was afraid to say anything to anybody, or there was nobody to say anything to. And so the healing, it's hard to heal when nobody else knows and it's just you. And so it's reaching out to other people is really, really important.
That, I think, is one of the biggest challenges in our society today. And personally, I think social media has made it worse because it's too easy to just say, hey, could 10 of my friends repost the suicide hotline so people know someone's listening? That's not really, to me, going to do a whole lot. That's just saying, hey, I did my part. I feel better about myself. I can move on with my day guilt-free. Because what I've noticed is when people say things like, if you ever need anything, I'll be there for you. And then when someone's going through a tough time and they do reach out, it's, oh yeah, well, I hope things get better. Anyway, I got to get back to my pot roast. And they're not there. They're not present and really helping like they said they would. And I think that's part of what causes people to be afraid to reach out. A, it's hard enough to just open up and say, I'm going through something and I need help. But B, to be afraid that you're more of a burden and you're going to cause a rift in a friendship because you're trying to reach out, that's worse to me. And I see so much of that these days that I think that's one of the biggest issues that needs to be overcome.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, and there's always going to be people that are not going to get close during those situations. And you don't want everybody getting close during those situations. You want trusted people that are willing to step in and to say, and I think that I think in our lives, there's maybe a handful of people, if we're lucky, that will actually do that. Will actually step in and they're like, no, I'm okay. And I was like, no, you're not okay. And, and I want to do something for you and, or this is what I'm going to do for you. So gosh, we're blessed if we have people that will step in to do that. I mean, you could have a million friends out there, but there might be one or two that will do that.
Very true. Well, I love that what you're doing is you're really opening up the dialogue with a book like this. You're letting people know that, hey, we're all real. People go through situations and it's okay to go through situations. Here's maybe a way that you can work yourself past that situation, or here's a way to deal with it while it's going on until you can move past it. I just love that because I think that's what we need so much more of right now. And I can't wait to read these stories, as difficult as some of them might be to read. I want to read every one of them.
Well, good. Hopefully everybody else does too.
I hope so.
They'll be inspired by these women. These women are, it's just so wonderful that they were so honest in what they were sharing. And I'm excited to get the stories out there. After talking about it for so long, I'm like, let's just get the book out there.
Well, that's us anyway, though. I mean, we want to get a project as soon as we think of it. We want to get it out there to the public so they can enjoy it. Last question for you. I noticed that your name is not on the list. Did you not write a story yourself?
I wrote a preface.
Okay.
I did not write a chapter. I went back and forth if I was going to write a chapter. And I didn't, because I wanted to leave the focus on these 25 women. And I just, so I wrote a preface, just to kind of highlight some different things. So nope, I did not do a chapter.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, sometimes you just need to focus on spearheading the project and keeping it organized and making sure everything's flowing right so you can release it on time. And that could be a very serious distraction if you're like, okay, but I got to write a chapter too. And you get distracted with, going through those things to make that happen. So I was just curious if you had considered it or not.
Well, I had considered it. And like I said, I went back and forth and I finally just said, no, I think 25 is a good number. And I want to keep the focus on them and not as much on me.
I'm glad you put this book into existence. I'm sure that the 25 authors that you have are people whose lives are more enriched just for even getting their story out of their system, because that in itself is very therapeutic. But today is release day, so congratulations to all of you guys. The links are in the show notes, guys. Please click on them. Go check it out. One other thing while I'm thinking about it, I don't know logistically how well this would work out or if it would be even reasonable, because if one person can't do it, it might not work. But have you thought about doing an audio version of this?
Yeah. Somebody asked that at one of our wine and reads, and I put my hands together and rubbed them, and I'm like, I really, really want to. I really want to put together an audio version because I consume. You and I may have talked about this before on the last one, but that's how I consume most of my books. That's how I read most of my books, is through audio, because it just works for me. And so that's the first thing I thought of, is like doing. It would be so fun to have an audio version of this and have each of the writers actually read their chapter, or they could have somebody else do it. That would be fine. So that is definitely the goal. So I just need to see how to make this work across 8 different states.
Right. Well,
it's a little.
Being somebody who's recorded and directed audiobooks remotely, I can probably help you with that.
Good to know.
It's not that difficult of a task. It's more scheduling usually becomes the problem, because people just think that they're going to sit down and read it and it's going to be very simple, and it's usually not. It's actually not easy to read aloud, especially when you're putting your own story into your own voice, and those things are hitting your memory. You're getting those visuals while you're trying to tell it, and you're going to probably get caught up in a little more emotion, stumble on your read a little bit. So it just takes somebody to, kind of be there to support that while they're going through that process. And you can remote into their computer and do all the starting and stopping of the recorder. It's really easy to do these days. So yeah, when you guys get to that point, let me know and I'll help you out however I can.
Okay, I'll take you up on that. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Well, thank you so much, Diane, for putting this out there. I love that you came up with this idea, and that you followed through on it, and that you're touching the lives of the people that are in the book and all these people that are going to be affected, that are going to read it, because I think this is going to be something that a lot of people are going to be affected in a very positive way by. So thank you for once again doing something that makes the world a better place.
Oh, well, thank you, Scott. And it was a pleasure talking with you, and I appreciate the kind words, and we're hoping for the best with this from us for you, and that's really what it is. It's a gift from us for the people reading. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Diane. Now, I know about another project you're working on, and I hope that you'll come back and see us when that one's ready to go.
Oh, the novel?
Yes.
The trilogy?
Yes.
Yeah. That one's going to come out later this year. I had to put that one on hold to get this other one out. But,
perfect.
But absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, I still have a few episodes to go on this show yet. So I've only hit just past the middle mark. So there's plenty of time.
Well, you're doing a great job with it.
Thank you, Diane. You take care and come back and visit us again, and good luck with this.
I will do. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you. Well, if you haven't already clicked on and purchased the book while you've been listening to the show, maybe it's because you're listening in your car. So as soon as you get to a safe destination, go down into the show notes and make sure that you click the link to purchase the book. Also, as I mentioned before, some of the podcast outlets I've noticed do not post the show notes. For the life of me, I cannot find the show notes on a couple of the different apps. So if you're having a hard time finding them, if you can't find the link to the book yourself, then write me at scott@scotthaskin.com and I'll get that right out to you. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back next week with another show. Cheers.